Bonjour, hello, and happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to the Aqua and Orange Show. I'm Justin Heyer here with Nick Bellato. This is your one-stop podcast for everything Miami Dolphins. Nick, how are you doing this fine evening on the eve of our second broadcast?
It's the broadcast side of things is still as exciting as it was the first time, which is awesome. It's Wednesday. That means we're super close to the weekend. We're halfway there. And we got a long weekend for us teachers, which I'm thrilled about. So I'm great right now.
I love that. I love that energy, the positive vibes. We are ready to get going here with our second Aqua and Orange Show broadcast, our very first live broadcast now, broadcasting live to YouTube, to my Twitter account at HireJustin. So be sure, if you're watching this in the recorded version, come follow us, check us out so that you can know when we are going live. So we have a lot to break down, despite the fact that it is now the official off season. The Super Bowl has come and gone. We can talk about that for a quick minute, and then we'll get into everything Miami Dolphins, because that's what you're all here for. But before we get into the football, we're going to start this show, as we will every show, with a fun trivia question. This week, it is my turn to ask Nick the trivia question. He stumped me last week with some history, which I feel like is a little unfair because he's a history teacher. But
I don't think it was that unfair of a question. I don't remember it, but I don't think it was that unfair.
I think it was unfair because I got it wrong. But I have, okay, here's a fun one for you. We'll see if anyone, if you get this, put it in the comments. Let us know that you got it. If you do, it's strange because I don't know why you would know this. But Nick, your trivia question for today: what is a group of porcupines called?
I
will give you a hint because otherwise you have absolutely no chance. It makes a lot of sense given the characteristics and attributes of a porcupine.
Spinies.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not a bad guess. They're called a prickle. A prickle of porcupines.
Really?
Which I absolutely love. So I was looking through to find this question. I was trying to find something really goofy. And I was looking through, there were a lot of different cool, fun animal names. The second one that I almost went with is, what is a group of giraffes called? It's a tower of giraffes, which I think is just fantastic.
That's equally as good. It
is equally as good. There were quite a few that had names that were that made a lot of sense given the characteristics or attributes of the animal, which I thought is really, you think about the people who come up with this kind of thing, whoever the group of people are who are sitting in a boardroom, a conference room, and saying, guys, we need some names for the groups of these animals. What should we call them? And they're having fun.
A tower.
A tower,
yes, a
right?
Tower.
What are giraffes like? Well, they're tall. Let's go with, what else is tall? A tower of giraffes. I thought it was fantastic.
I like prickle more, though. I think that's much funnier.
Porcupines. You get the alliteration too.
It's just porcupines.
It rolls off the tongue.
It sounds like something like a British monarch would say. Hey, a prickle of porcupines.
Listen, it could have been. I don't know when this was done. I don't know when these names were made. It could have been a while ago. Back in England. Who knows? Anyway, that's our fun trivia question of the day. Thanks everyone for listening and waiting a good 4 minutes before we got to the football. We want to have some fun on here, and we hope you're having fun too. Nick, how was your Super Bowl watching experience? What was it like in the Bellato household?
It was good. It was actually, a little bit quieter than normal. We got a small, so it wasn't a big hoorah like it usually is. But it was still fun. Food was great. The company was great. I don't know how many of my students are watching, so I'll leave it at that. The game I thought was okay. I didn't think the game was the best. The last few minutes were nice, but I thought I thought that was going to happen. The Rams winning it. I didn't think it would be like that. I was really impressed with Cincinnati's defense, I think, above all else. They did a really good job at keeping the Rams offense, which is known to be a little bit potent, from, really running the score up, which I thought, made the game a little bit more interesting. Thought the halftime show was great. I don't know how you felt about it, but I liked the halftime show a lot. Yeah, that was great. That was a good Super Bowl all around.
I thought the halftime show was fantastic. I think that was a pretty unanimous consensus amongst people, at least on Twitter. People seem to love it. I thought it was extremely well done and entertaining. I really enjoyed the game. I know it wasn't the super explosive, 35-38 kind of contest that people may have been hoping for, or that they got with the Chiefs Bills, or even with the Chiefs Bengals. But listen, when you have a game that's a Super Bowl and it comes down to the final drive and you're within 3, I'm satisfied with that for sure. The storylines were great. There was drama throughout, and seeing Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, Andrew Whitworth, these are guys that I think everyone has been rooting for to win a Super Bowl. Whitworth, who might retire now at 40 years old, the oldest player in the league. Stafford finally got his due after leaving Detroit. I really enjoyed it. I thought as far as Super Bowls go, as far as Super Bowls that we've had in the past 10 years, this was up there in terms of the entire experience, halftime show, game. I don't know how many commercials there were that totally stuck out to me this year. I love the Peyton Manning, Jimmy Butler, Michelob Ultra bowling commercial where Serena came in at the end. That Serena Williams, that was a great one. Peyton Manning just can do anything.
Always. Oh, Peyton Manning, anything Peyton Manning's in, I'm about. That one was good. I liked the Austin Powers throwbacks ones. I think it was Chevy. I think it was Chevy. One of the trucks, I believe. I thought those were good. The Coinbase one was weird. I mean, just because I was just like,
yes.
I think it was one of those things where I was just stunned at myself for just staring at it for as long as I did without realizing that I had to do something about it. Yeah. I was just like, this is odd. Like, why is this happening? And then I was like, oh, like 40 seconds in. It was really embarrassing.
Is my TV frozen like a computer from the 90s, or is this still
I was like, what's going on?
That was a creative one. Kudos to their marketing.
Oh, the Larry David one was good too.
That was I can't believe I didn't say that. That was number one for me.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Another guy who, wherever you put him, is going to be fantastic.
100%.
Okay, so let's dive into the Dolphins here. Mike McDaniel and his coaching staff. That's news of these past few days. Now almost, if not entirely complete. I'm sure we're getting a full-fledged announcement from the Dolphins when it's entirely complete. So maybe still a couple of position or assistant position coaches still to come, but we have it pretty much set. So Mike McDaniel has OC outside hire, Frank Smith, run game coordinator and OL coach from the Chargers, retained defensive coordinator Josh Boyer, retained special teams coordinator Danny Crossman, and then here are the units. John Embry, coming from the 49ers, going to coach tight ends and is going to be reportedly assistant head coach. Wes Welker, wide receivers. Matt Applebaum, outside hire from Boston College, offensive line. Eric Stoodsville, running backs coach, retained. Quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator from this was from, I believe, yesterday, Darrell Bevel, coming over from Jacksonville. A lot of history there, a lot of experience. And then defense almost entirely retained. Charles Burks, cornerbacks. Anthony Campanile, linebackers, defensive line Austin Clark, and then outside hire Tyrone McKenzie is going to be coaching outside linebackers. Nick, your highlights and general impressions from this coaching staff.
Well, the first one I think is obvious with Wes Welker, right? Just because that's fun. He was a guy who played for Miami in the early 2000s. He was the one that kept us from going 0-17 or 16 rather. In that 2007 season, right? That was that was Greg Camarillo. I take that back. But he was still a great player. He was also a player that I think he was the first to catch a pass, record a rush, kick a field goal or an extra point, and do a punt in the same game. Something weird. So there's cool memories with Wes Welker coming back. And San Francisco's wide receiver coaches have been wide receivers have been pretty good. So I'm hoping that can translate. He can help make Jalen Waddle better. There's a lot of similarities in their skill sets. Waddle, I think, is overall a better athlete, much faster, but you could definitely see some similarities when you think about how they were used in the past. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited for a new offensive line coach. It literally could have been anybody else. I was okay with it because it couldn't have been as bad. And I do like that we're retaining that defensive staff because that defense was really, really good. Really, really good last year, especially down the stretch. Now, I know the quality of competition was lacking, and it was pretty evident that as soon as we played somebody that was good, we did still have some holes on defense. But I think that this is a really good opportunity for this coaching staff. I like what they were able to do in that second half, so I'm glad that we were able to retain them and hopefully just continue to build on what was a pretty good end of the season. There's a lot of really good talent on that side of the ball, and I would hate for a brand new coaching staff to come in, change everything, and then those players who looked like for a lot of the season were being maximized, they fall by the wayside. So I'm kind of excited about the defensive coaching staff coming back for the most part, and everything I hear about McKenzie is really great. Like, he seems to be one of those up and coming coaches, really good at what he does. So just adding another great piece to what I think is a pretty decent staff already. Not a big fan of Stootsville.
Yeah,
I did not like him
really
coming back.
So,
well, because I don't like that his offense was terrible, and he still has a job with us, personally.
So I have a bit of a different perspective on that, because we're not Mike McDaniel's not keeping him to run the offense. Mike McDaniel's keeping him to coach the running backs. And that's something that over the course, he's a 20, 30-year coaching veteran. This guy's been around for a long time and has coached a lot of phenomenal running backs. Had a great run in Denver coaching running backs there. And this is someone who's apparently extremely well respected around the NFL, and who, again, is not being retained to do the job that he didn't do so well in Miami. It's also a little bit unclear to me as to unclear to everyone as to whose offense that was last year, given the conflicting remarks and confusion that was surrounding who was calling plays, who was crafting game plan, collaborative, not collaborative.
Can I jump in real quick? Because I just got a little bit of breaking news on the live. The Dolphins are hiring team legend Sam Madison as cornerbacks and pass game specialist.
No. Oh my God, what a win.
There you go. Sam Madison also back in the building. That's great.
Breaking news on the broadcast, Nick.
Yeah, I love that. All of our live viewers. I have no idea who is our live viewers.
And add to that here, this is, I'm assuming you're quoting from Adam Schefter here, Charles Burks, who we just discussed was going to coach cornerbacks, now departing for similar role in Cincinnati. So Sam Madison coming in and replacing Charles Burks, and with an elevated title too, pass game specialist there you mentioned. Four-time Pro Bowl selection with the Dolphins, obviously here from 97 to 05, Schefter puts. Okay, how do you feel about the defensive staff now, Nick?
I mean, I still feel good because Sam Madison, so obviously with all these coaches, you wonder if they're going to be able to get the best out of their players. But, there's a part of me that likes having players that were really good at their jobs coaching other players. So I'm excited about it. I think of all the hires, outside of Wes Welker, because, again, that's another former player, I like this one a lot. I know it's like we're just quickly firing off takes on it, but I liked it a lot.
That's an exciting hire right there. You already talked about a secondary that's pretty loaded in Miami with Howard and Byron Jones and Javon Holland and Brandon Jones. That's a hire right there. I am really, really stoked about that. And I want to talk about this defensive staff as a whole for a second. Josh Boyer, I think everyone is sort of, this is almost like a wait and see kind of moment, right? Where the unit as a whole, terrible in the first half of the season, really good in the second half of the season. You mentioned the competition thing. Dolphins, we'll run through the stats here. 16th in yards allowed, 17th in points allowed, 5th in sacks, 2nd in QB pressures. This is Boyer's chance to prove that he can do this on his own without a defensive mastermind as a head coach, which most people saw Flores as. And this is his chance to say, okay, I can put my own stamp on this defense. I understand what it does well. I know these players. I can do this. And let's be clear. From what's been reported, Mike McDaniel had his own call. He got to choose. This was his call as to whether or not he was going to retain coaches or bring in his own guys. And he sat down with Josh Boyer. He said this in one of his media appearances, that he spent some time with Josh Boyer. He spoke with a lot of people in the building about Josh Boyer. He did a full-fledged conversation with him, tried to understand what his philosophy, his scheme was going to be. And Mike McDaniel said, okay, you know these guys, and I trust what you're saying right now. You come in and you continue the level of success that you had last year. So to me, the way that players have spoken about him too, Jerome Baker spoke very highly about him last year. I agree with you where you say, okay, this team did really well last year. This defense did really well last year. Let's try to keep that continuity growing and fix the offense.
Yeah, I think that's key here because you've got, I think you and I have talked about this a lot. I think we've got a borderline championship defense. I still think there are things to improve, but you had 3 rookies who should only get better with another year under the same system. So if they can take that next step, which all signs indicate that they will. I'm sorry, 2 rookies rather. All signs indicate that they will. I think this is going to be a really, really good defense next year. So why not keep the band together, minus Alexander?
And I want to emphasize a couple other things that really excite me about this coaching staff. The emphasis that McDaniel is putting on the offensive line, bringing in guys that are renowned teachers in the offensive line department specifically, that shows me that he's coming in and doing a complete evaluation as to where this team's weaknesses are and bringing in people who can fix those particular weaknesses. Matt Applebaum had one of the very best offensive lines in college football last year. Zion Johnson's probably going to be a first-round pick, was potentially going to fall in that range where Miami sits right now at 29th, played at Boston College. And you have a couple of other guys on that line as well who are likely to be drafted, and they were rated in the top of many categories, according to Pro Football Focus, by the end of the season. So this is a guy who's renowned at teaching offensive lines and did it really well at the college level. Frank Smith, phenomenal job turning around Los Angeles' offensive line last year. Yes, they brought in reinforcements. You got to acknowledge that. But to bring that unit from nearly last in the NFL to top 10 in 1 year, he did a phenomenal job. So you bring him to coach the offense as well, help craft that game plan and teach the offensive line. And one more offensive hire that I think is a little bit controversial amongst Fins fans right now, Darrell Bevell, frankly, I think was, in my opinion, a good hire. You bring in someone who I think should be given a lot of credit for Russell Wilson's development. I mean, Bevell was the OC there from 2011 to 2017. That's the entirety first half of Russell Wilson's career. There's, of course, the elephant in the room, that final play call at the end of their Super Bowl loss to the Patriots. He's taken responsibility for that. Pete Carroll's taken responsibility for that. Russell Wilson's taken responsibility for that. You could put blame in a whole bunch of places for that one play call, but his career should not be judged based on that, solely on that one play call. Also, by the way, head coaching experience. He was the interim head coach for Detroit in 2020 and for the Jags last year.
I want to just echo what you just said about the one play. I mean, listen, it happens. People make bad decisions all the time in NFL football games. Was this one more publicized and more awkward than a lot of the other ones? Oh, yeah, it sure was. But that doesn't mean you can say that he's a bad coach because of one play. One play, like, yeah, it lost him a Super Bowl, but how about all the other plays they didn't make that could have contributed to them winning a Super Bowl? It wasn't that one play. I don't like how a lot of people will look at one play as a deciding factor in a game. It's actually a series of plays, a series of things that you could have done better that could have potentially put yourself into a better situation to win a football game. One play ain't going to do it.
And for anyone who is not convinced by Nick's statements there, Darrell Bevell isn't calling plays in Miami.
Yeah, so everyone get over it.
As quarterbacks coach. And
you're going to tell me he didn't learn?
Yeah.
You're going to tell me he didn't learn from that? He definitely learned from that.
So all in all, this is how I think this is one of the best offensive coaching staffs that Miami has had in a very, very long time. And Mike McDaniel included in that. But between John Embry, who helped develop George Kittle in Tampa Bay, in San Francisco, and Cameron Brate in Tampa Bay, Wes Welker, obviously, who you broke down and everyone knows quite well, Applebaum, Bevell. This is, at least on paper, you got to see what they do when the cleats hit the turf. But on paper, this is one of the best offensive coaching staffs Miami's had in a very long time. Speaking of play calling. Mike McDaniel confirmed in his press conference, his introductory press conference, that he plans to call plays. That has gone very well on some teams and very poorly on others, namely the Dolphins. How do you feel about Mike McDaniel, head coach and play caller?
You know, I can't say anything yet. I don't really have an opinion yet because we haven't seen it play out. It could be great. It could be a mess. And as long as whatever is, if it ends up being a mess, as long as we adjust quickly, I'll be fine with it. There's no way to know. That's something like I can't even begin to formulate an opinion on that because there are moments where there are coaches in the league that call plays and they do a really good job of what they do. It's just Mike McDaniel hasn't proven that he can do that yet. Let's give him time. Let's give him time to see if that's something that he can actually be good at.
And I think where we've seen it fail so often, obviously the success we've seen in McVay, Matt LaFleur, Andy Reid, we've seen it not work so well with Adam Gase in Miami and New York. I think one of the biggest problems that came out of that particular situation, the Adam Gase situation, was that Gase seemed often isolated from the rest of the game, not necessarily communicating with the rest of the staff. And that's something McDaniel addressed in his press conference. He said something to the effect of, actually, I'll quote here, "If you're a head coach and calling plays, you better feel very good about the people on your offensive staff." He talked a lot about the collaborative effort that needs to happen if you're going to be calling plays. You also have to have a lot of trust in your defensive side of the ball, which clearly he does in Josh Boyer, having retained him. But from the energy, and this is speculation, but from the energy that we've seen from McDaniel, press conferences, media appearances, this is not a guy who's going to go sit in the corner.
Right.
This is not a guy who's going to go sit on the bench in the corner and, draw up his plays on his playbook and not potentially the rest of the game, not talk with anyone else. I have a very hard time seeing the guy I've seen for the past couple of weeks be that guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Can I also just say that one of the funniest things I've seen in the last couple of weeks is the report that Adam Gase was being considered for the Patriots offensive coordinator position.
Which, by the way, is still open, I believe. I'm pretty sure.
Gosh, I hope they give it to him because that would just be wonderful. That offense would tank so quick, and I bet you Bill Belichick fires him within 36 minutes of his second game.
I was surprised to see that report, in part because Gase hasn't had any NFL position since he was fired from the Jets. I mean, listen, he was a great offensive coordinator for the
Peyton
Broncos.
Manning.
Peyton
Manning.
He had Jay Cutler's best season in Chicago. But yes, he had Peyton Manning in Denver. I would be surprised, especially because it seemed like they might try to go after Bill O'Brien. I don't think that position's been filled. I could have missed that, but it's potentially still out there in the open, and there's a chance. So I don't know. Maybe your dreams may come true based on that.
That would be so wonderful. I would love for him to ruin each team in the division at least a little bit.
That's true. He'll be making the rounds.
Yeah.
Dolphins, Jets. Only thing that'll be left is for Sean McDermott to bring him into Buffalo to work with Josh Allen. So
love it.
Yeah, I feel like with Mike McDaniel calling the plays, I'm under the impression that it seems like the fact that he came in, by the way, to his introductory press conference and had that known already. I'm sure that was part of something he was planning, had discussed with the team top brass when he was going through his introductory press or his interviews rather. So something the team seems comfortable with as well. Okay, let's move on to our Q&A. Appreciate you guys sending us in questions on Twitter. If you want to be shouted out on the show, have us answer your questions, make sure to follow us on Twitter. Again, if you're not watching, if you're listening to this only, I'm at Higher Justin. He's at OSO6446. Still on a campaign to get him to change that Twitter handle. We'll see how that goes next episode. Make sure you tune in to find out if I'm able to make that happen.
That's right.
But let's start with, that's our hook. Let's start with at Flamo Sumit on Twitter. I'm doing my best, guys. I apologize if I butcher your Twitter handles, but I'm doing my best. These are your Twitter handles, not mine. I'm trying over here.
You're blaming
Would you
them?
prefer? I'm I'm blaming Flamo over here.
It's funny.
Would you prefer to draft a running back in this upcoming draft or grab a bargain in free agency? We've done the latter a lot. It's a position we've neglected in the last 4 to 5 years. Nick, I defer to you.
Yeah, so this is, I think, a really good question because it's like it says in the tweet, it's a question that we've been trying to answer for the last what feels like forever. So for me, yes, if you can draft a running back that's a good top quality running back in this draft, I don't see why not, right? This team is lacking a game changing running back. Myles Gaskin, as good as he is, catching the ball and kind of, in those kind of scat, he's not an every down back. Duke Johnson was fun to watch, but can he keep that up? Can he continue to be that? You don't really know what else, Philip Lindsay or Salvin Ahmed. You just don't know. There's too many variables. And if you need a running back that can get you tough downs or tough yardage when you actually need it, take some pressure off of Tua, be a decent blocker, all in one. That's why last year, Justin, I'm sure you remember, I wanted us to take Najee Harris badly, whatever we could have done. So for me, if we can go out and get, if we can get a Breece Hall or a Kenneth Walker or an Isaiah Spiller, somebody who's, one of those top running backs, yes, I am definitely down to take one of them, 100%. And if you got to wait to the end rounds because you want to prioritize offensive line, I'd be okay with it, but we just all need to accept that I think our running game is not going to be great if we go in there with those same guys I just mentioned.
Yeah, and I think that the answer to this question could also be sort of both, which you're alluding to there as well. You can grab a bargain in free agency and draft the guy high up, right? You and I talked about last week, I think, signing Raheem Mostert from the 49ers, someone who Mike McDaniel's familiar with. If Dolphins go that route and they bring in Mostert, that is not going to prevent them if guys you mentioned, Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, Kenneth Walker, fall to them at 29th or in round 2. So the answer here, I think, maybe should be both. That way you're not, put into a corner there during the draft trying to make that decision. You have some depth on your team, and then if a guy falls to you, you take him. So if I had to pick one, I think it's time for the Dolphins to get a star running back in the draft. I'm going to pick both here, though, because it's our show and I can. So,
the cheating answer. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Sign Raheem Mostert. Leonard Fournette's, I think, going to command a bit of money, but if he's leaving Tampa,
Fournette's not the guy I would look for. Mostert is good. I really think bringing in I wouldn't say Fournette's not older, but if you're going to go out and get a free agency guy like that is older, you must address it in the draft. I think that creates a need to address it in the draft.
It also depends. I think it possibly depends on what the Dolphins think of their internal stable. If they're re-signing Philip Lindsay and Duke Johnson and they're keeping Myles Gaskin, you don't really have a lot of room to bring in a vet anyway. Mike McDaniel, I'm sure, is going to do a lot of analysis here as well on who he feels is going to fit his system, which is a very unique system. So that zone run scheme, I'm sure he's going to have a couple of targets in mind. And again, wouldn't be surprised if one of those is someone he's coached before. Matt Breida is still out there too, has played for the Dolphins. Hopefully would do better in Mike McDaniel's scheme given the lack of production last time he was here. But that I think is a potential option as well. Okay, let's go to our next question here from @SportsRetorter3 asks, was McDaniel keeping Boyer and letting Alexander go more of his decision or more Greer/Ross?
I mean, it sounded to me like there was an understanding that McDaniel would keep the vast majority of his coaching staff. It might have been a Greer move. I don't really know enough about how that broke down, and I tried to look at it to see if I could come up with some answer that maybe I would have missed, in the day-to-day rumblings of life. But I really don't know who was responsible for the firing or letting him move on. It might have been mutual, right? One of the things is Chris Greer might have said, hey, we don't want to keep this guy. Mike McDaniel could have said, all right. And they move on from him.
I think that's a perfect way to break it down, in that there obviously is no firm answer in that McDaniel didn't come out and say, hey, I was told to keep these guys and that's why I kept these guys. It was reported by several outlets before McDaniel took the job that the Dolphins were potentially thinking of keeping a lot of their defensive staff. So I'm sure it was something that was discussed in interviews that was on Greer and Ross's mind. However, McDaniel talked a lot about that process of how he decided to keep Boyer, like I mentioned before, and having had conversations with him, having talked to a lot of people in the building and talked with players. He also mentioned, by the way, he went up against this defense in 2020 and got absolutely walloped by it. He said here, I'm just trying to find the quote. I lost it real quick.
We're stalling.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like if you've coached offense your whole career, one litmus test is if you're deciding what defense you play, how awesome would it be if you didn't want to play that defense, right? He's saying as an offensive coach, you want to play a defense that you wouldn't want to play. For it to be the defense you have, he said, and the defense against them, the 49ers, was miserable against them. They crushed us in 2020. So clearly, having gone against that defense was something. It was a great game if you were a Dolphins fan. He called that defense versatile. He called them aggressive. He said that that's the kind of defense that he wants to have. So I'm sure that maybe played into his decision a bit as well, having struggled against them so much last year. Okay, let's move on to, wow, you guys have some great Twitter names. At Skleppy Sklep. Absolutely phenomenal Twitter handles here, guys. We talked about this a little bit a couple of minutes ago. What do we think the Dolphins do with the running back room? Keep what we have, draft back to top 3 or look at free agency. So I'm going to alter this question a bit since we already touched on it a minute, Nick. Pick one guy. Pick one guy in the draft. Who's the guy you're gunning for right now? Obviously, you have a couple of months still to go. We're going to do a lot of analysis, but call your shot now on February 16th. Who's your top guy right now?
For the running backs?
In the draft among the running backs.
So, I mean, I don't think he's necessarily ranked number one, but I thought what Kenneth Walker did in this season was incredible. So he would be my guy. A little bit smaller at that. I think he's like 5'10", 210. So a little bit smaller, not like the big bruiser maybe, but definitely plays like he is. That would be my guy. But if you told me I could get Hall, Spiller, or Walker, sign me up for all 3. But I think I like Walker over the other 2 slightly.
If you are out there and you have not watched Kenneth Walker's highlights against Michigan this year, I implore you to go do so. It was.
Stop watching us. Go watch it.
Don't. After you finish this video, go watch Kenneth Walker, because that was a running back work of art. That was as glorious as a game gets in terms of college football running back play. Phenomenal. So after you finish this video, Nick, go watch Kenneth Walker. Go watch Kenneth Walker. Okay. At Finn_Fanny asks, do you think with Coach McDaniel we could see the OL improve? Perhaps with a better brand of coaching and play fit into their strengths. Could you see the likes of Hunt, Eichenberg, Jackson, etc. up their game?
Yes.
I want to see all 3 of those guys on the line again this year, but Hunt, yes.
But I mean, yeah, Hunt for sure. The step back that he took, I think was more a byproduct of just the awfulness of the line than it was him, because he was really good in his rookie season. But no, I think, listen, there's a reason that these guys were taken high. I think Eichenberg, still has a lot of opportunity to grow and develop. Jackson, he played a little bit better when he moved to guard, so maybe that's just really what he should be doing. I mean, it wasn't great, but in a new system, I think there's, I can't see a considerable amount of like massive upside, right, on these guys. I don't think we're going to be talking about a transition to becoming the top offensive lineman in the league. But with that being said, with a new coaching staff that is better what they do, I think that they could get more out of these players. Now, I think it's unlikely that all 3 of them are starting in 2022. Here is it, 2022? Because I see the Dolphins spending a lot of money on guys in free agency, and I'm telling you, I think Laken Tomlinson is going to be on this team next year. I feel very comfortable with that saying that.
Absolutely. A guard that played really well with Mike McDaniel is a free agent now. I'm sure is going to be one of his top targets at guard. And if so, it means one of Eichenberger Jackson probably isn't starting next year because Rob Hunt definitely, I'd be shocked if he doesn't have one of the guard spots locked down already. Given the play, like you said, this rookie year and the second half of last year, he was also one of the top guards, right guards in the NFL. So just took him a little while to warm up and get there last year. So I agree. I do think that this zone run scheme helps offensive linemen that struggle, especially those who struggle with stunts, which the Dolphins struggled a lot with last year, Austin Jackson in particular. So I do think this scheme is going to help the offensive linemen, but I also think McDaniel has already addressed it several times without actually like hitting it directly on the nose, that the offensive line needs to improve for him to run that scheme. That means, I'm guessing, after Lincoln Tomlinson or Teron Armstead, Morgan Moses, there are actually a lot of linemen out there in free agency. We'll see how many actually make it there in about exactly a month before otherwise getting tagged or re-signed. Brandon Scherf. So between free agency and the draft, we're going to see some turnover here. My guess is at most two of those three, Hunt, Eichenberg, Jackson, are starters next year. But again, TBD, whichever ones do start, I do think their play will improve. All right. If we didn't answer your question, still thank you for submitting it, and we will get to it next week. If, again, you want to submit your questions, be sure to follow us on Twitter at HireJustin at OSO6446, which means, Nick, if we're through Q&A, you know what time it is. It is time for the wild card question of the day. It is Nick's turn today, asking a generally non-sports related question for all of us to just laugh a little bit about at the end of the show. So, Nick, I defer to you. What is the question for today?
Okay, Justin, I'd like you to imagine early morning. It's early morning.
Paint a picture. Yep, sun's rising.
You're people around you are starting to get up, and they're having breakfast. So we're putting ourselves in a breakfast environment.
Okay. I just had cereal for dinner, so I'm already in that mindset.
I have a follow-up question to my first question. With that new information we just learned.
Okay.
If you were a breakfast item, what would you be and why? If you were a breakfast food item, what would you be and why? Yeah, what would you be? If you had to choose to be a breakfast food item, what would you be?
I have so many questions for your question.
You have to answer mine first. It's the wild card. What would you, if you had to be a breakfast food, what would you be? Yeah. It's my turn. You got to answer it. That's how it works.
Okay. No, I get it. I have no idea what to go off of. Like where I would be pancakes. I'd be pancakes because, the whole process of making, like, I get to sort of fly through the air. You flip them around, and I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun. Everyone loves pancakes. There's no one who doesn't like pancakes. Everyone likes at least some kind of pancake. So you get to have all that maple syrup. I feel weird answering this question, Nick. I'm gonna go pancake for the reasons I have just mentioned, and I will speak no further on the topic.
All right, I'm going to go. So I'm torn. I'm either going to be bacon or eggs. I think I'm going to go with eggs, though, because I like to be the center of attention. I feel like in a breakfast, it's very limited. There's very few moments where eggs are not actively involved. And I like that about myself.
Are you telling me that when you pile up, your breakfast plate, the thing you're most excited for are the eggs?
I didn't say you'd be most excited for me, but you're not going to skip me. Okay. You're not going to skip me. You're not going to prioritize me. You're going to give me one scoop, and that's it. But I'll be there.
This is one of the wackier questions that we have had, and I'm all for it. Let us know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. If you can be a breakfast food, what breakfast food would you be?
Also, I was considering bacon. I was considering bacon as well.
No, bacon. I was also considering bacon. Bacon is like the universally loved.
It's like too standard though,
Yeah, it is, and Okay, do you feel like the bacon trend is going too far? Bacon's in everything now, and they're making like bacon flavored snacks and things.
So those things I think are absurd because I feel like whenever you artificialize a flavor, it just is
Yeah.
crap. So bacon flavored stuff, not a fan, but just bacon all the time.
I almost never had.
Listen,
I
we were
never.
given 4 arteries for a reason. I believe that God gave me, we can function on like 2, gave us 2 extra for all the bacon.
I never decidedly choose a bacon flavored snack like ever. I've tried a couple, not a huge fan.
No.
I love bacon with breakfast. I generally don't go for like if I'm gonna get like sometimes if you get like one of those sandwiches, let's say for dinner, and they like throw bacon in there. I'm not a huge fan of that personally. I don't know if I'm in the minority and that I'm not like the biggest bacon
So
fan.
like when it comes to like a BLT, are you against it? Because like bacon, lettuce, tomato with some mayonnaise on it. Oh.
Not necessarily, but I've started to go to restaurants where like they'll put in the burgers, and I feel like for me it's a little too much. It's like it's
so
too much.
I would say it depends on how I'm feeling when it comes to the burger because I can. There are some moments where I can like really enjoy it. Other moments where I'm just not feeling it.
All right, I think that's fair. What was the second question you were going to ask me about my?
Yeah, why cereal? Like you didn't have any other items like. I feel like when you eat cereal for breakfast, you're like either you're leaving, or I'm sorry, for dinner. It means you're either leaving to go get more later, like more food later, or you didn't go grocery shopping and you realized at 7:30 and you were starving, so cereal was the only thing you had.
Both have happened. I do have other things in my kitchen available to me right now. It just so happened that by the time I got back to my apartment and we were supposed to record the show, I had about 10 minutes. And so the Wheaties came out of the cupboard with a little bit of Wheaties and milk, and that ended up being my dinner. Once we finished the show now, I may go back. I was hungry.
I get it. I
didn't want to come on the show all hungry and cranky. You don't
have
deserve
a couple
that
of
side
slices
of me.
Of bacon.
You don't deserve that side of me. I'm not gonna do that to you. So figured I'd have a little something. But yes, as a it has happened before where I've just forgotten to grocery shop and it was Wheaties for dinner.
I hope you can feel the judgment. That's all.
I appreciate the judgment.
And like, listen, you got to do what you got to do. But I feel like cereal for breakfast or for dinner makes me sad. See, I can't even say it. That's how odd it is for me. I can't even say it.
Give it a try. Underrated. Give it a try. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much to everyone for sticking around. If you stuck around to the end, thank you very much for watching. We record live streaming to my Twitter @HireJustin and to YouTube. Nick's Twitter's @OSO6446. Still on a campaign to change that. Let Nick know in the comments that his Twitter handle needs to change. I could use some support in trying to make that happen. We'll see if he comes around by next week. Probably not, but one can hope.
See. Hey, if we can get enough support, listen. If we can get enough support from all of our loyal fans out there, I'm willing.
I need you guys. We need you guys. Make this happen. You can also listen to our show on Spotify, coming to more podcasting platforms soon as well. Watch us on YouTube, watch us live on Twitter and YouTube, and listen to us on Spotify. Thank you again very much for listening. We will see you all next time.
Thanks, everybody.